Hello, everybody. Thanks very much for joining us. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Tessa Rowland, and I run the services at MedComsNetworking.com. There's a variety of services up there for people who work in and around the global MedComs community, by which I'm talking medical communications, medical education, medical publishing. And a big part of what we do is we're also generating content services, activities for people who want to come into MedComs. We're very keen to talk to people who would like to make a career in MedComs, and you'll find a lot of resource at FirstMedCommsJob.com, articles, careers guides, webinars, videos, whatever. And one of the things I'm doing, I'm running these weekly webinars at the moment. Some of them, like today, are very much aimed at people who want to come into the business. Others are aimed at people who are in the business and so on. But every Wednesday at the moment, we're running a webinar. You're all welcome to come and join us. The webinars are recorded and posted wherever possible to NetworkPharma TV, where you'll now find nearly 300 videos of one sort or another. So there's quite a good resource there to go and have a look at. Today, I'm delighted to be joined by three people who have been profiled in the most recent edition of our Account Manager's Careers Guide, which you can find at FirstMedCommsJob.com. So we've got Mel, Matt, and Tessa. And we're simply going to have a panel discussion about life as an account manager in MedComs. So without further ado, I'd like each of you to introduce yourselves, guys. And I'm going to start, Mel, with yourself. So a little bit about yourself and the company you're working for. Thank you.
Thanks, Peter. So hi everyone, my name's Melissa and I'm a Senior Account Executive working for a company called Envision Pharma Group, which is a medical communications agency in South Manchester, based in the UK. On a personal level, so I've been in MedComs now for about 3 years. However, I started my career in pharma market research, which I did for 2 years. And I think that's sort of where my initial attraction to a MedComs role started. I was more sort of interested in a client-facing and organisational role. So that's a little bit about me. And as a company, so Envision Pharma Group is a global leader in the medical affairs and communication space. We have over 700 employees and they're scattered all across the globe, including the UK, the US, Australia, Japan, Hungary and Serbia. And we specialise in medical strategy and communication, and we come complete with a technical arm. We help cross-functional teams support and connect with their audiences and provide purpose-built solutions for medical affairs teams to manage projects, publications, information and data.
Excellent.
So that's a little bit about me.
Excellent. Thanks, Mel. Tessa, you go next. You tell us a bit about yourself.
Sure. Hi, everyone. It's nice to connect with you, and I really hope you'll find this session useful with us today, asking your questions. So my name's Tessa, and I'm a Senior Account Executive at Lucid Group. I came into medical communications after doing a BSc in pharmacology. As part of that, I did a year in industry. So I worked in biopharmaceutical development with Allergan. And then I just kind of happened upon a really interesting sounding advert for a position at Lucid Group after graduation. And I kind of thought this really suits me. It kind of balances science, but also kind of really strong interaction with people. Which was what I was looking for. So I kind of applied and it went from there. So I've been with Lucid Group now for about 3.5 years. I started as a graduate and then I'm a senior account executive now. Lucid Group is a really interesting agency. We have a really big focus on behavior change programs. So we do all kinds of traditional MedComs activities, and we also have a kind of in-house digital arm to do kind of really fun, jazzy digital stuff. But our kind of focus is really on creating programs with our pharma clients that have the potential to really impact patient care on a day-to-day level. So we've had some really great successes in that, and I know we've been a recipient of several awards for kind of the programs that we've produced.
And sorry, Tess, sorry, I don't think I missed it. Where are you based?
Our offices are based primarily in the UK, mainly in Macclesfield and in London. We also have an outpost lighthouse based in Manhattan. And then within the UK, we're kind of a mix of obviously pre-pandemic office-based workers, and now we have a lot of kind of remote workers in different places around the country.
Okay, cool. I like to get a little bit of flavour of the global footprint, as it were, because we will have people coming in from outside the UK. Matt, tell us about yourself.
Yeah, so I'm Senior Account Manager at Ashfield MedComms. So a little bit about Ashfield MedComms maybe first. So Ashfield MedComms is a newly formed agency. So we are part of Ashfield Health, formerly known as Ashfield Healthcare, formerly known as Ashfield Healthcare Communications. And what we've done is I work for the MedCom side of things, and what we've done is integrate all of the previous agencies together, really be able to share best practices. And that means, we have over 700 people within Ashfield MedComms based all across the globe, from US, UK, Germany. There's 12 different offices out there, and pretty similar to the way Tessa was saying as well, of a lot of home workers as well, really just to be able to get that talent and get the right fit. I myself am a home worker, so before the pandemic, I've worked from home now for the last 18 months. And that's just due to my kind of personal circumstances, which brings me nicely onto me a little bit. So I've been in the industry for 5 years, have a strong history in project management, used to work in retail project management, and just kind of fell into MedComms. It wasn't something I ever really knew existed. A former colleague had said, look, there's a great job I think you would be interested in. Started off as an account exec and then just moved up over the years. And I think it's great to be part of an industry that really makes a difference to people's lives.
Excellent. Okay, right. Thank you very much. Right. Okay. So what we're going to do today is simply have a panel discussion amongst ourselves. But I'm hoping it's going to be fed by comments and observations and questions from the audience who are out there. So audience members, remember you've got a chat button and the Q&A button. They'll call up text boxes. Use the text boxes just to throw your questions at us, and we'll weave it into the discussion. Okay. Well, I'll sort of kick off with the inevitable. We're talking at end of January 2021. We've had a fairly disrupted year. We've mentioned a few times already working at home and all the rest of it. Just give us a flavour, and I'm really looking for a flavour from each of you over the last year. How's it been? What is happening? What sort of things have happened within the agencies in terms of supporting you working home? I know, Matt, you'll be saying, well, I used to work. Anyway, let's take it one at a time. But just give us a flavour of how MedComms is doing with your working at home. And I'm going to go backwards. I'll start with you, Matt. Go on.
Yeah, absolutely. I think working from home, it's one of those industries that really can work from anywhere. As you said, I've worked from home for some time, so things are a little bit more normal for me than maybe most people are experiencing. But, I think we've really come forward in this time, and, things that maybe were frustrations for me a year and a half ago, starting to work from home, now other people are experiencing it as well. We are coming together. I think we're a lot more communicative over the likes of Teams and, sitting and having those discussions and really making sure that virtual meetings work. And I think that's great for us, but it's also great for our clients, because we're starting, we're understanding these things a bit more, and our learnings in our personal space we can bring into virtual meetings, etc. as well.
Okay, and we can talk a bit more about it as the conversation goes on, but online training, the agencies are supporting you with online training,
absolutely,
online support of various sorts. Yeah,
nothing's stopped at all. Everything's just in a new format.
Okay, and indeed, many people in MedComms would say it's probably busier now than it's ever been. Is that fair?
Absolutely.
Yeah, which is sort of interesting, and it's just worth acknowledging, I guess, at the moment that's what's happening. And you're all nodding, but Tess, let's come back to you. Just again, a flavour of what's happening at Lucid, what Lucid are doing to support you all working at home.
Yeah, I mean, I think to kind of echo Matt, I think we're kind of going the pandemic has kind of pushed us in a direction that we were going in anyway. So kind of we were taking in more people who were working from home anyway, but this has just kind of pushed us to now give that opportunity to everyone, and also for the business to understand that we can function just as well 100% remote as we did in the office, and we still have really good opportunities to work collaboratively. And we've kind of thinking about different ways to do things. And like Matt said, kind of we understand some of the issues that our clients have had with virtual meetings now, because we're experiencing them too, so it gives us better experience to be able to deal with that. In terms of support, I think Lucid have been really, really good. They're kind of full of surprises is how I would describe our approach to working from home. We have a really great well-being team, and we have a group of mental health first aiders who kind of work together to put on little kind of activities that we can go to. So we can do like yoga or virtual dance party, or just you kind of get invitations coming into your inbox with all kinds of surprises, which really helps keep morale up. And it also connects you with people who maybe aren't working on your projects on a day-to-day basis, so you're not seeing them as much as you would in the office, but it's a chance to kind of connect on a more social level. Even kind of our larger company meetings that we have on a quarterly basis, we get sent like little gifts and things in the post now, which just kind of like perk you up, and it helps keep you feel connected.
Excellent. Okay, that's all very positive. Mel, you're going to repeat a lot of that, I guess.
Pretty much, yeah. I think what Matt and Tessa have both spoken about pretty much sums up my experience from sort of working from home. And I think in terms of the business, we have been fairly buoyant. Like we have, continued to drive the business. And yes, things have changed, and yes, things have gone virtual, but we, still remain to be open for business, which is great. In terms of working from home, we've had to adapt really quickly. And I think what Tessa mentioned before, I think we were already we were veering towards more of a digital world anyway. This is obviously just made it go a little bit quicker. But I think in terms of sort of working from home and being able to do the same job as I would be able to do in the office, I don't think it's made that much of a difference. And I also think it's probably made us a lot stronger in terms of a team, because I know for a fact that, if we were in the office, I have that luxury of being able to go and just talk to someone face to face or approach them at their desk to ask questions. Now it's almost like we're making more of a conscious effort to be able to stay connected, because we're all so, far apart. So I think there is a lot of advantages, I think, from this. And again, from a business perspective, I think, business remains to be sort of fairly buoyant. And I think as well, it gives us a stronger relationship with our clients. As you know, I think for the entire world, this is a brand new thing that we've had to experience. So we're going through it as a team together. So I do think it builds the client sort of partnership a lot more.
Excellent. Okay, let's pursue this one a little bit further, and let's just make a very clear point to everybody that we're talking about account management today. Okay, account management, project management, the terminology varies a little bit, but it's client services and so on, and we'll talk a bit more about that. I just want to draw the distinction before we get too many questions coming in about the writing side, but that's a different side, and we'll talk a little bit about how you guys interact and work with and so on. But there are other activities, meetings, webinars, videos that we've done with the writers. I want to concentrate on account management in MedComms, okay? And what you were saying there, let's just pick up on what you said there, Mel, because you said something like you're working harder at staying connected. It's not like it used to be, where you just casually wander over to somebody and ask what was happening or something. And that was a very positive way of putting it. The other way of looking at that would be, it's just a lot harder, because if you're in the office together, particularly as account management, project management types, it's much easier to wander over and say, oi, where's that project that was supposed to be here yesterday or something? Because a lot of your work, I mean, again, nod really at this stage, but a lot of your work is project management, it's time scales, it's meeting the deadlines and so on. And to some extent, a writer can sit there and write away, but you guys have to chivvy them and sort the deadlines out, and that sort of liaison is going on. Arguably, it's much easier if you're in an office together. So just talk a little bit more about that. About what you're doing on a day-to-day basis in terms of chivvying people and why, and the sorts of people you're chivvying, and just explore a little bit this, is it easier in an office or not type question. And Mel, because you started it, can you just say a few more words there? And I'm trying to get a picture of what you're doing on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess in terms of sort of, keeping people on track and being able to stay well connected, we have a multitude of sort of digital platforms now that we use on a regular basis to use as touch points with all of our teams. I guess one of the main ones we use is like the likes of Skype. We have sort of group chats, as you like, that we have, say if we're working on a specific project, there may be like 4 or 5 different people involved with that project, so we will form a sort of Skype group, and we'll have that as sort of a touch point where we can talk pretty much any time of the day, and someone, you know, at some point will pick it up. In terms of keeping people on track, I think again we use another digital tool online that provides like loads of information on deadlines, and it gives you sort of information on sort of how long these tasks take, and we have so much online, and I think that just sort of gradually gets better and better each day, really, with all these different tools that come out that we use to stay on track. We do have, as we would in an office environment, we do have status meetings over, you know, Zoom, GoTo, all the platforms where we have regular catch-ups, and we say, where are we up to with this project, where are we up to with that project? And you know, it is easy to talk to people up front in the office, but because we're all in this same situation and we're sort of on our on our computers pretty much all day, every day, we are more connected in a sense. So if I've got a question I need to fire over to a medical writer, I'll send that question and I can guarantee within 10 minutes it's been answered, because, you know, everybody's trying to stay so well focused and well connected. So in that aspect, I don't think it's as difficult as it sounds. Like, I think everyone's just so, you know, on it, and people know they have to be connected. So it's not as difficult. But yeah, like we say, we use so many platforms to be able to sort of, you know, plot out timelines and deadlines, and everybody knows now that, you know, because we are missing that face-to-face interaction, there's a little bit more effort from the side of, you know, going into those platforms, checking the deadlines, having more touch points. So yeah, so it has its pros and cons, but I think at this moment in time, people are adapting really quick, and it's becoming easier every day. Okay,
and Matt, you're nodding away there.
Yeah.
But you know what I mean. I mean, I came up through the account management type route, and you know, there are situations where you fire a message at somebody, and even if you get the answer, nothing happens. You know, you go and sit on their desk and say, "I'm not moving until something happens," sort of thing. And so I'm just interested in that aspect of it a little bit. Just tell us a little bit how you're project managing.
Yeah, so I think it all comes down to that kind of teamwork and everyone feeling like they're a stakeholder in what's being delivered. Everyone has their own ownership of it. And, you know, whilst I might be, you know, saying, come on, we need the deadline of this, you know, they are a stakeholder in that. They want to deliver as well. No one's in the business, you know, just for a paycheck. It's the type of business where you're in it because you want to make a difference. So people are really vested into it, you know. I think it means a lot of people talk more in you know, from my experiences, you know, we do pick up the phone and talk, and we know a little bit more about people's personal lives as well. You know, so-and-so has a child shouting in the background or whatever, you know the different stresses that people are on, and it actually helps me to kind of think, you know, on paper, this person might have lots of time, but actually they've got X, Y, and Z going on. So I can make allowances and plan for that better than, you know, in some cases where they're in the office, but maybe not in the perfect headspace, or, you know, it does really seem to work for me. Obviously, I've been at it that bit longer, but it you know, it's something that I feel really works.
It's interesting, isn't it, that it's turned out a lot of people are finding it much more effective than maybe they thought it would. Although I'm always going to say, you know, remember the 25% of at any one time of people that are struggling a bit with something. Tessa, just tell us a little bit more. Try and be a little bit more. And Tessa, I'm going to ask you, pin you down a little bit. What are you actually doing? And in fact, there's a question coming at the moment. You know, what are the actual tasks involved? And a comparison with writing. I mean, you can go writing is just writing, obviously, but it just gives a little bit more of a flavour of what you're actually doing on a day-to-day basis. In terms of project management, budget control, client servicing, and so on. Just gives a little bit of flavour of what you're doing at a task level.
Yeah, no problem. So I would say for the most part that my role kind of falls into two categories. So on a day-to-day basis, I would say my tasks are either related to, the running of a project. So if we take something I've done recently, like a congress, for example. So for anyone that's kind of unfamiliar with them, these are big conferences that we have where pharmaceutical clients have the opportunity to, and also kind of institutions, have the opportunity to present the kind of latest research and data, which they can also sort of promote their products in a separate area of that. To kind of really raise awareness of what they've got going on, obviously to sort of boost people's awareness of their products on a very basic level. So in order to support with that, we can do all kind of manner of different medical education activities, which can range from symposia, so kind of like big presentations, through to kind of booth development for commercial content, through to helping authors write posters. And often with our larger clients, a congress is sort of a culmination of a lot of those different things. So on a day-to-day basis, I would essentially be for my clients the point contact for all of those things. They don't want to be going to loads and loads of different people to ask where their post is up to or where their animation is up to. So my role is really understanding where the people who are working on each element of this project are up to. Is everything on track? Do they need help with anything? Are they missing any information? Is there anything that we need to ask the client for? Are the design team briefed? All of those kind of coordination activities in order to bring all of those threads together to deliver a really impactful event for our clients. And then on the other hand, I would say that my role focuses on kind of on a more big picture level, working with our editorial and scientific directors and our account directors to understand in the longer term, where is our client going with this product? What do we need to do? Is there an educational need? Who needs to understand the education about this product? How is best to deliver that, to really feed into their strategy for their product over a longer period of time?
Excellent. Okay, I think and that covered a lot of ground. And one of the things that I think is worth highlighting with a congress, and we could spend an entire hour talking about a congress. I think people miss the fact of how many different facets there are, how many different elements there are: invites, PowerPoint slides, travel, or whatever, and obviously now the sort of virtual platforms and so on. So there's a lot of different elements, all of which you're sort of juggling and managing, and you've got content people and creative people and clients and so on all around you. And in that instance, event organizers and societies and whatever. So there's a complex environment. You don't just sit there on your own at the desk not talking to anybody, which is an important point. Okay, and you have, so the Congress is also a good example because the Congress doesn't change date. So if it's going to be on next Thursday, it doesn't matter whether someone's late with something. The Congress isn't going to turn around and go, we'll move a week just to allow for that. You've got to make things meet the deadlines, yeah. And ultimately, there's a budget consideration as well. Mel, I'm going to slightly put you two on the spot now because we've started talking about a project there. Mel, I'm hoping we're going to get a different project where we can talk a little bit about, and I'm going to sort of go publications because that's the big part of what you do, isn't it? And just try and give me a flavour of maybe working on a publications account, maybe a little bit different.
So
unless I got it wrong and you don't work on a publications account.
I actually don't work in the publications
I knew you were going to say that
arena. But I can
have you an
talk
example of what you do?
Yeah, I can actually. So I think what Tessa was alluding to there, I think in terms of the MedComms projects we get involved with so many different types of projects, and more recently we are starting to develop more digital projects. As you know, COVID is stopping that face-to-face interaction, so a lot of our clients are actually going towards looking to the future for the digital world, and now I think we are starting to realize that we can, get all our information across, or get the client's information across via other channels. So websites, brand websites, disease websites. We're developing stuff for awareness days for websites. So that's where sort of we're gearing towards sort of the web digital world. But you know, sort of in parallel to that, we're then developing materials that can go on those websites, such as, you know, internal training documents for launch, for drug launches, that are sort of targeted towards the MSLs or medical science liaisons and key account managers. So that's more of like an internal training resource. We do loads of sort of educational materials for external audiences, so for lab experts and sort of healthcare professionals. So that sort of, it works nicely because we can develop all these materials and then we can all, you know, ultimately put those on our sort of digital websites, and it's just you know, easier than say just providing like a static document via, you know, email. I think it's a lot more creative now, and we can sort of disseminate all this material in different ways. So yeah, they're sort of the sort of projects that we get into. We do a lot of satellite symposia, as Tessa's alluded to there. We do a lot of sort of standalone meetings, advisory boards. And I guess now we are looking at different ways to you know, deliver these advisory boards. As a typical advisory board, you would normally have to travel to, you know, a different part of the world to sort of gather you know, 10 to 12 doctors in one room. We're now finding ways to do this virtually that are pretty much as efficient as it would be to be in the room. So it's great that we're sort of doing all these projects now, and we're still able to do it to a high standard. It's just in a different channel of delivery.
Okay,
yes.
Again, just to try and pin you down a little bit, because it's what I'm trying to get at is what Mel
Yeah,
actually does
yeah.
as an account exec sort of thing. So just gives a little bit of a flavour. It's probably a little bit the same, but just to reiterate, are you the main client contact again?
Yeah, absolutely. So as me and myself will be a sort of initial point of contact for a client. So we are there from day one, and we sort of take on that client brief. So they will probably request a particular, you know, material or project, and we'll be there in the briefing call, taking notes. You know, asking relevant questions. Who's the audience? You know, where do you envisage this being sort of disseminated? When would you like this project taking place? So we're there at the very start to capture all these answers to these questions, and then I guess once we've had that initial sort of briefing call, we will go away and we'll develop what's called a proposal or a statement of work. So we are responsible for making sure we develop all of their sort of that request into a proposal, where we will work with different internal teams to sort of work out, well, how's that going to take place? Well, you know, how much time is this going to take us? And we pretty much put that into a document, and that's what sort of I get involved with. I'll be there, I'll be plotting out timelines, making sure that, you know, we've got all the relevant steps in to make sure that project is delivered on time. Again, we work a lot with different agencies and different third-party vendors, particularly like AV teams. If we are working, say, for instance, on an advisory board or a standalone meeting online, we'll need an AV team to help support with that. So that's my job, to be able to liaise with that team and ask, you know, have we got the equipment? How much is it going to cost? You know, when will we be able to deliver it? There's a lot of logistical sort of coordination that goes that I get involved with, and also I think what's quite important is, because we are the initial point of contact, it's almost our responsibility to make sure we're relaying all the information we get from our clients to the internal team. So we have many teams within MedComms. We have account management, scientific, editorial, creative, digital, and it's almost our responsibility to make sure that everybody who is working on a project knows exactly what they're doing, exactly when they need to do it, and when the deadlines are. And I think that's pretty much key in my job, to make sure that happens. So we are adhering to client deadlines, Congress deadlines, and so on and so forth.
Excellent.
I almost feel like we have to be very personable. We have to be able to be really flexible. As you know, we might get asked to do a project by a certain date, but things sort of, unaccountable factors come in that you just can't, timeline shift. So you also have to be flexible. You have to be able to adapt quite quickly in MedComms, and things change all the time. So again, we have to make sure we're on that, and we sort of communicate updated timelines and so on. So it's always changing, and yeah, it always keeps you on your toes.
2 days are
Okay,
never
that's
the
cool.
same,
That's
aren't
cool.
they?
Okay, well, Matt, just you come in on this one as well a little bit, and I know some of what.
Yeah.
Well, let's not just go over what we've just said, but some people talk about or think about account management if they're looking from the outside, and they go, they must be the guys who do the accounts. They must be, are they qualified accountants? Are they? What's your what? Just let's focus on that area. What's your budget responsibility and financial management responsibility? You're not an accountant, are you?
Yeah,
but you do
not.
have to worry about the project budgets. So just give us a
Yes.
flavour of your involvement there.
So we would obviously be supporting with the development of the budget, so linking with the various different teams, and how long things are going to take. So budget's generally based on everyone has an hourly rate, for example. So if a manuscript was going to take 20 hours to do, draft 1, draft 2, for example, that equates to a certain cost. So it's for us to put together those budgets and make sure that the budgets are correct. The money is there, obviously get that approved and signed off by the client and make sure they're happy with that. Then a lot of the budgeting, again, is just making sure it's change of scope. It's looking, has anything changed? Should there be a budget update, or actually is it something internally that's just maybe taking a little bit longer, etc. So really kind of delve down into that. Internally, obviously we have to recognize revenue, etc. That's more done as a percentage of the project that's been completed. So it's having an awareness of finance, but it's not the actual sitting down and dealing with accounts and that type of thing. Again, then invoicing. So we would put together invoice trackers, make sure that the client agrees of where we should be invoicing up to, what should be invoiced that month, and then we will pass that through to the accounts department to obviously raise those invoices and move forward with that process.
Okay. And it's just worth recognizing that, and it's stating the obvious, but let's recognize, you're working in even the larger ones are still relatively small business, but it's a commercial pressure there. You've got to make some money and it's got to work, and what you're selling is time and stuff largely. So if people run away, if your writers spend twice as long working on a project as they're supposed to have done, that has a very immediate impact on the business, and your role is to manage it so that doesn't happen. Also, maybe be part of the judgment as to whether that is or isn't the subject of a discussion with the client, because you can't just go back to the client and go, well, it's just cost you twice as much as you expected, sort of thing. Yeah. So there's that juggling that's going on all the time. The other question that sometimes comes up with account managers is, are you the sales guys?
Absolutely not.
Do you see yourself as a sales guy? Where's the business coming from then?
So, I mean, for me within account management, I feel we're not the sales guys. However, we are there to support with strategy and, to support and, come up with ideas of potential projects that could fill that need for them. But, we're not sat there to be sales. That's not our, that's not our drive. However, if there is something that a client needs, then yes, we would recommend that. We work as strategic partners with them. Like Mel and Tessa were saying earlier, of identifying kind of future projects, identifying what needs communicating, why it needs communicating, what you're preparing for, some new data to come out. Then we're not actually selling anything, if you know what I mean, but we are having those discussions, and we will be, will support.
Okay. Anybody, Mel, do you want to jump in there and give a viewpoint?
I think what Matt's just said is really, really key. I don't see myself as a sales, manager. I see myself as a client solutions manager. So I'm, always trying to identify solutions for the client. That's pretty much what it is. I think it really depends on the client, but I know on different accounts there are sort of more opportunities to get involved with brainstorming with the clients, and they're very open to that. So we might have a client come to us and say we need we need a new tool for our MSLs to use in the field with, HCPs, and we'll say, well, actually, have you thought about an app that, they could use on their phones and use on the go? And, and some of the clients are so open to our suggestions, and they say, absolutely, we'd love to get involved. We'd love to sort of, delve into that a little bit more and see if, it's possible. So, some of these sort of requests that come in, we are able to offer these solutions. As well, I think with the sort of the business, I guess from my perspective, a lot of our business comes from the sort of the quality that we've already delivered. They can see that we're, absolutely at the top with our quality. So they think, well, we're really happy with the previous project they've done. We're going to go, we're going to do it again, and we're going to do it again. And, you get a really good, portfolio of sort of projects through that route, I guess.
Okay. I mean, there might be an interesting discussion in here about what is sales and what isn't sales. But at the end of the day, you are creating new business by servicing clients well and offering such. But you're not cold calling. You're not sitting on a phone picking up the phone, or you guys aren't anyway. I mean, Tessa, is that how it's working with you? Like, that is everything that's been said a fair reflection of how it goes? And at the end of the day, a specific question, and let's just stick with Tess just for a moment. You are the main points of contact with the client. Do the writers, do the other people involved in the various teams have any contact with the clients? Just give us a bit of a flavour of maybe how that works. It'll vary in different agencies, but Tessa, talk a little bit about what happens at Lucid.
Yeah. So I would say, just in terms of the sales question, I definitely agree with Matt and Mel. I think the key thing to remember is that we are trying to deliver solutions of value. So everything that we suggest to every client will be completely different. And it's the sort of element of customization to reach a specific goal that I don't think makes us sales-based. We're not given, go sell 10 AdWords isn't kind of how our businesses function. We're really trying to deliver projects that make a difference and are a good investment for our clients. So in some cases that will be, an amazing interactive 3D video. In other cases, it may be an infographic. It's very dependent on the client and what they're looking for. And then in terms of communication, in general, it's a balance for us between an accounts manager and an editorial lead. So in general, we structure our projects so that we tend to have a lead contact from both of those teams. Obviously, because it would be inefficient for a lot of kind of scientific content questions and queries to come from a client and be directed to myself and the rest of the accounts team. It's a lot more straightforward for the writer to have those conversations directly with the client, and it also kind of gives the client more of a perspective as our team as a larger entity. Kind of the differing experience that we have, I think, can only be brought to the forefront by involving other people in communications.
Okay, right. I've got one eye on the clock because, as always, we're going to run out of time. I'd like that what you've been talking about, I think, is great and gives us a flavour of what you do and so on. Let's just go back to basics and just quickly, if we can, let's just run through some basic points, many of which are covered in some of these questions and so on. When you start, how do you get in? What's the magic answer? Is there a magic course that you can take that will get you in? Have you any advice for people who are wanting to come in? I'm going to jump around a bit. I'm going to start with Matt for what it's worth. How did you get in? What was the interview like? What were the tests like? How does it work? Just very briefly, give us a flavour of how you got in.
So I started as an account exec. So interview process, kind of the norm, so to speak, of 2 interviews. Initial interview, really kind of getting to know me and my skills and what I could bring. And then a second interview with a little bit more of a test. So for me, the test that I did was a bit to do with prioritization. So, you come into 10 emails, what do you prioritize first? Which, really kind of look at that, because that is a really important thing of, you will come into emails overnight, you're dealing with all different time zones. You need to be able to prioritize and be able to answer and deliver what's needed. I know someone's just popped up there, in the chat straight away there and said, retail experience, how did that lend itself to the role? A big jump. It is project management. You are managing the projects. And that's something that, I'm trying to think of the word, but the skills that can be utilized and just really showing your key
transferable
skills. Yeah, transferable skills to, yeah, absolutely. And then, I don't come from a science background. I don't have a degree. I'm one of few that don't really. And yeah, the process was great. It was, I think I'd just say, kind of be yourself. You're applying for the job. If you're getting an interview, they've seen your CV, they've obviously seen something in you in order to give you that interview, and be yourself and sell yourself with what you can do.
Okay, we can't cover off some of there's some very specific questions coming about, how can I convince someone that I'm going to be a good account manager? So let's not go too far. But I suppose what I'm trying to get again is a flavour of what people are looking for and what you're bringing to the party. And it's interesting that you haven't got the science background. I would say generally a life science background is extremely useful in account management, but as compared with medical writing, where it really is very, very useful, and they'll often want postgraduate and so on. But you've got 3 different experiences, and the work experience counts enormously for you. Tessa, just again, a little bit of a flavour of how you got in, and why, as it were. How did you get in?
Yeah, so like I said in my intro, I did have a bit of lab experience previously, and I think during my degree that was more the route that I thought that I would end up taking would be into research and development in pharmaceuticals. But then having worked for a year in that department working on those products, I think for me, when I kind of happened upon an advert for a position with Lucid as a graduate, I think for me, it was the ability to be that one step closer to the patient, essentially. I found obviously working in biopharmaceuticals really interesting, but for me, I think it was I found it quite difficult to see where the work that I was completing on a daily basis was really having an impact, because obviously the development time for pharmaceuticals is so long, and that's just sort of my personality, I guess. So when I kind of had this opportunity to combine the science that I'm really interested in with also delivering projects that we can see real change in how patients are cared for, or real benefits to how HCPs kind of globally address their practice. That was what really appealed to me. And then in terms of a kind of interview, I think I had a phone interview, just kind of some sort of general questions, more about kind of my motivation and my background, like we're talking about now. And then I came in for an interview where I had to give a presentation. So I think I was asked to put together a presentation on a disease area of my choice, and where I thought there may be a need for additional communication in that area, and who that may be to, and then kind of some suggestions on how, if I was given this as a project, how I would address these concerns of the client. And then kind of followed by a few more questions, and a kind of a lot of meeting people in the office as well. I think a lot of the not a lot, but obviously an aspect of kind of anyone who comes into our team is how well they'll fit with the rest of our team. So there's a lot of kind of meeting people, having casual cups of tea, even at the interview stage, just so that we can really get a feel, because all of our teams are slightly different. So there may be, you may be suited to one team more than another, and we like to explore that.
Okay, cool. And Mel, just briefly, just what happened at your interview or that process? Just give us just focusing on that bit.
Yeah, so for the particular process for me, it was similar to Tess's. I think so. I had a phone call initially just to talk about my background and again my motivation, why I applied and whatnot. And then I think once that taken place, I was invited in to present. I think it was an exercise around planning for an advisory board, which I think I touched on earlier. Actually, it's a sort of face-to-face meeting typically with 10 to 12 doctors, and the agenda could be pretty much whatever the client wants to explore in terms of objectives. But yeah, I was asked to put together sort of a roadmap for that. So it was to sort of, what's the next steps, what's the timelines, who's involved, who I need to speak to, and a lot of that logistical management. So different in the sense, I think from Tessa's presentation, where you were asked to sort of focus on a therapy area. Mine was sort of just a type of maybe project that you'd be typically involved with on a daily basis. So that was, I think, presented to maybe 3 or 4 people in one meeting room. And it lasted about an hour. And I think, yeah, I'd come in at a sort of entry-level position. So I think I'd come in as an account exec. And yeah, basically that's it. So it was it wasn't too long. You know, it was just about right, and it followed sort of a normal structure to like an interview process.
Okay, look, guys, we're over time as always, because I could just carry on talking for the next hour or so. I'm going to try and draw this to a halt. I mean, it would be nice to go into a little bit more detail about the training and I think if I can just say a general comment and you nod at me or not, but let's hope you're going to nod at me. You know, what I think MedComms these days is quite well structured in terms of providing learning and development and support for people. You come in, you're not left on your own, you're supported. There's a training and a career pathway ahead of you. And that's an important message I think that needs to go out there, but maybe as a subject for a different day. We've got a number of interesting questions here which I'd like to cover off after we finish the recording, but let's just finish that off afterwards. Can I I'm just going to do what I said I would do, and just to wrap it up, so brief, okay guys. What's your tip? Have you got a tip that you can just throw out there and go, if you're thinking about coming into account management, think about this? And I'm going to go Tessa first.
I would say my tip would be to not put yourself in a box. I think it's Katerina's comment about switching from medical writing to account managing, and I think once you kind of get into our industry, there are so many different paths that you can take. You know, there are people who are kind of MedComms lifers. They will go up and up and up and stay within account management for, you know, 10, 15, 20 years. But there are also people who kind of take their career in more of a wiggly line. They may do a bit of kind of medical writing. They may go out somewhere else and then come back again. And I think opening yourself to any opportunity would be my advice, because there's definitely flexibility within this industry to structure your career based upon your goals and interests.
Excellent. Okay, I'm going to move this quite quickly. Matt, I'm going to go to you next. You're next on.
I'd say be open-minded, you know, really try and don't just go with the status quo. You know, think outside the box, and, you know, for the interview process, you know, look at different agencies, go to your interview and see which agency fits you as well, and really make sure it's the right place for you.
And that's an important message, because all agencies are different. It's a very simple message, but it's very difficult to grasp that until you go and talk to a bunch of them. And what they're looking for, what anyone is looking for, is where they fit. And that is an important message. So thank you. Mel, I'm going to finish with you. Have you got something you can just throw out?
I mean, yeah, Matt and Tessa pretty much covered what I was going to say, but I mean, I think this is probably for when you're I'd say in the role. I think I'd say that communication is absolutely key. And I know it's sort of ironic, but it's you know, communication between teams and being in the company and just making sure you're visible at all times, I think, and being really sort of personable. I think that really goes a long way when you're in this role. And I think, yeah, communication, I think, is absolute number one. Making sure you're well connected, and once you're well connected, the job, it doesn't seem like a job, because, you know, you are just cruising along.
Cruising. There you go. Along. Okay, you heard it here. Cruise. Okay. Right, guys, look, as I say, I'm sorry, we are slightly over time, and I hate it, because I'd love to just keep talking, but for the purposes of the video, I'd like us to say goodbye now. And for anybody on the meeting but watching the video later on, I know that all 3 of you are very happy for people to reach out via LinkedIn and so on to talk to us. That's the easy way of make contact. So thank you very much for joining, and it's been fascinating listening to you. For the purpose of the video, I'm going to ask you all to give us a little wave, and then we're going to just say goodbye. So all together now. Bye-bye.
Bye.